Good evening and welcome to the Nevis newscast. Today is Wednesday, February 17th, 2016. I'm Donis Wilkinson Keynes. Premier the Honorable Vance issued a statement yesterday as he seeks to dispel rumors that the Four Seasons Resort Nevis will close due to the recent change of ownership. In that statement, Premier Amory encouraged employees of the Four Seasons Resort to consult with their supervisors, the resort manager or the general manager in order to get a true picture of what is transpiring.
I want to say that in our discussions with Cascade Holdings, the manager of the new local company, Nevis Peak Holdings LLC, we certainly had the concern, and we were able to get an assurance and a commitment that there will be no closure and the operations of the hotel will continue as it is. Now, I said, where there will be any renovations, this will be conducted in such a way that will not affect the operations of the Four Seasons Resort.
The Premier's statement reiterates assurances given earlier by General Manager Edward Gannon.
The Four Seasons Resort will not close. Let me assure all of the members who work at the Four Seasons Hotel, you have had your meetings with the general manager before the change of ownership. You have had subsequent meetings. You have been asked to read and sign an indication of whether you want to continue to be employed under the conditions which the new owners will provide or have provided. And I want to encourage all of you to accept the new conditions. It is just a continuation of the operations, albeit under new ownership.
Premier Amory says he felt compelled to make the statement so that employees of the Four Seasons Resort would not make any decision based on misinformation.
The comments which have been going in the social media and on some radio stations do not make it easy for the people who work there, and it is calculated to strike fear in their hearts and to bring some measure of unease among them. I trust that my little statement gives you comfort, those of you who work there, and lays to rest all of the innuendo and all of the naysaying and the misinformation which has come from people who clearly are people of ill will.
Premier the Honorable Vance Amory. 2 weeks of training for the Nevis flood mitigation project began on Monday, February 15th at the Emergency Operations Center. The training is the second phase of the project, which is sponsored by the USAID-funded OECS Rallying the Region to Action on Climate Change RAC project and CIMH. The training is being facilitated by Technical Officer Damien Prescod and hydrologists Dr. Jonathan Cox and Sean Boyce of the CIMH.
If some of you don't know what CIMH organization is about, that's the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology. And we've been asked to offer our consultancy services and technical services on behalf of the OECS RAC project, which is funded by the USAID and has procured some weather stations, rain gauge stations, and water level monitoring stations on the island.
Prescod gave an overview of the sessions.
The training is going to be split up into a physical and technical part, so you're going to have to get your hands on some stuff. You don't get it dirty. Then there is software, hydrological modeling, and then, before that, that's what Sean takes care of. And before Sean does his modeling hydrologically, Dr. Cox will go through hydrological principles with you. So we will try to keep it as interactive as possible. We won't make you drop to sleep. It's a very important network that was installed here in Nevis, so I want you to grasp some responsibility for it and appreciate what the OECS, USA, and the CIMH have done for you. And I hope that you take away information from this 2-week training, and it will benefit not only you personally, maybe some of your friends or your family, and in future we won't have some of the disasters that we have recognized in our research as we relate to flooding in Charlestown and other areas.
Representatives from the Met Office, Fire and Rescue Services, Department of Agriculture, Nevis Water Department, and the Department of Physical Planning, Natural Resources and Environment are receiving the training. Director Brian Dyer says the Nevis Disaster Management Department is also related to be a part of the multidimensional project.
It's about early warning prediction and data gathering, and it will be beneficial to us at the department that we can predict flood in specific areas, and also for the water department it's essential for them also to look at the amount of rain collected and also the recharge for the aquifers. For agriculture, they would be interested in the evaporation processes with regards to water that flows through our channels. So it is indeed a blessing for us to be a part of this workshop, and we encourage all our partners to take in as much information as possible to ensure that we are well-rounded and will be able to respond accordingly.
Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Physical Planning, Natural Resources and Environment, Denzil Stanley, says the project is part of the overall drainage project that is being undertaken on the island.
I believe that the program would be an informative one for each one of us here, each department represented here today. We are hoping that it wouldn't have to come a point where we would have to forced into implementing what we're learning due to any unforeseen circumstances in terms of flooding and so forth. But if called upon, we know each one of us here will be ready for that.
The first phase of the Nevis flood mitigation project involved the installation of rain gauge and water level early warning systems at Bath Stream, Nisbet Plantation, Stony Grove and Morgan Estate. A project aimed at conserving biodiversity and reducing habitat degradation in protected areas and their areas of influence is expected to result in the establishment of a Protected Areas Agency for St. Kitts and Nevis. The project's legal consultant, Shemica Maloney, says the agency will be designated specifically for the management and oversight of protected areas.
Provision is made currently under NCPA for the management of these areas, but it is it's more ad hoc, where the minister has to then go and appoint an agency, have it gazetted, and then they would oversee the management of the existing protected areas. So by creating a new agency under this legislation, we would create a designated agency just for that purpose and remove the minister having oversight in relation to the protected areas. The intended outcome is to have an effective, dedicated agency that is adequately staffed and resourced to oversee and manage the designated protected areas. So with this also, we would see the creation of jobs for rangers and other environmental enthusiasts, so to speak, within the Federation, which is a very positive move.
The project requires the revision of the National Conservation and Environment Protection Act. The Protected Areas Agency is one of the critical aspects of the revision of that legislation.
Currently, no such institution exists, as there is a fragmentation of environmental functions throughout the government departments that deal with other environmental matters and not specifically with protected areas management. Thus, the Protected Areas Agency will function as the lead agency responsible and accountable for protected areas management. The legislation will empower the Protected Areas Agency to play its role in accordance with the government's overall environmental policy. Regulation and enforcement of the provisions of the Act in relation to the protected areas will also fall within the purview of the Protected Areas Agency.
So far, 2 consultations with stakeholders in government and the private sector have been held to get feedback and input on how to establish a proper functioning Protected Areas Agency. Still to come.
It's a great pleasure to be presenting this book to you, Ms. Parris, and I do hope that everyone in Nevis will take advantage of it.
The details after this break.
Welcome to Nevis.
It's easy to believe that all Caribbean islands are the same until you visit Nevis.
Nevis is the Caribbean of a bygone era.
You will enjoy a most intimate vacation on Nevis. You're only a stranger here once.
we offer exclusive and barefoot luxury stays.
With only 400 hotel rooms, our island may be exclusive,
but the warm, genuine and friendly welcome is just everywhere.
We look forward to meeting you.
Visit nevisisland.com.
Welcome back. The Nevis Public Library on Monday, February 15th, received a book donation from author Sabir Nakhuda. Nakhuda is the author of the book Bengal to Barbados.
I have written a book called Bengal to Barbados, a 100-year history of East Indians in Barbados. When I went through my library in the archives to learn more about the East Indians in Barbados, because as you know, there are East Indians in Trinidad and Guyana and other parts of the Caribbean, but all of them came as indentured laborers. But in Barbados, I found out that there were no indentureship of East Indian laborers in Barbados. So I set about looking to find out where were these East Indian who resides in Barbados came from. And it took me 15 years to do oral research. And I came with the book Bengal to Barbados. This book is the foreword of this book is written by the Prime Minister of Barbados, Honorable Fondel Short. This book deals with the places where the East Indian came from, their life, the life of the East Indians who lives in Barbados. And the purpose of this presentation is that I need to encourage and educate the Caribbean people about the different cultures that exist within the Caribbean. People may have learned about and would have heard about East Indians in Guyana and Trinidad because that's where majority of them are. But hardly you would hear people knowing about the East Indians in Barbados, and especially when they came under different circumstances. Because all of the East Indians, earlier East Indians, they came by accident. They never set out to come to Barbados, but they ended up in Barbados. So those are the differences. And you will see the culture is also different from the culture of the East Indians in Guyana and Trinidad.
Receiving on behalf of the library was Chief Librarian Anastasia Parris.
On behalf of the Nevis Public Library Service, Mr. Nakhuda, I want to say a very warm thank you for your presentation of this book, Bengal to Barbados. I know you have told me all that is contained in this book, and I am certain that it will be a great help to our students, especially in their SBAs and their history research in general, and I'm sure it will be beneficial to the general public as well.
Chief Librarian at the Nevis Public Library, Anastasia Parris. Qualified guidance counselors in the Federation can now better assist the students and the young people dealing with substance abuse after completing the recently concluded training and certification program for drug and violence prevention treatment and rehabilitation PROSA, facilitated through the St. Kitts and the Nevis National Council on Drug Abuse Prevention. Director of the National Drug Council, Carrie Byron, says the objective of the program is to contribute to optimizing the quality of care in prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation of drug abuse and dependence and drug-related violence. She says the objective is being accomplished through both governmental and non-governmental frontline organizations that provide drug abuse and violence prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation services that target people suffering from drug abuse and/or dependence and their families, as well as other high-risk populations. The PROSA Caribbean initiative was launched in May 2011 in Barbados and has been adopted, developed, and implemented on a regional level while meeting country-specific needs and capacities. The Department of Social Services Senior Citizens Division yesterday, Tuesday, February 16th, joined with family members to celebrate the 90th birthday of Nathaniel Parry of Cotton Ground. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social Development, Keith Glasgow, on behalf of Junior Minister of Social Development, Hazel Brand Williams, made 2 presentations to Parry.
On behalf of the Nevis Island Administration, in partnership with the City Drugstore, we want to present to you this plaque on the occasion of your 90th birthday. We also wish to present at this time as well the fruit basket. Compliments, as we indicated, the NIA and the CDS. We want to wish you a very happy 90th birthday. And we are hoping and we are praying for the Lord to continue to richly bless you so that you could have many more birthdays.
Upon receiving his gifts, Parry thanked all those present.
Thanks and praise the Lord this morning. Master, you spare my life for 19 years. I never expect to live so long. I was sick. Some of them are sick. Some of them I feel good. I feel bad. But God is good. God is sure mine. I don't know mine.
All right.
Them the half. All them will look after me when I get done. So I love them. Thank them very much.
The gathering then sang the birthday song for the 90-year-old Parry.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord, may the good Lord, may the good Lord bless you. Hip hip, hooray, hip hip, hooray.
Also present was coordinator of the Senior Citizens Division, Garcia Hendrickson.